Is it just me, or is John Walker acting a little too big for his britches? He brags about having 20/20 vision. He calls Bucky Bucky, like he's, familiar with him to that level. And he tells Falcon and the Winter Soldier to stay the hell out of his way in tracking down the Flag Smashers. I mean, those final comments and the last look he gives them doesn't exactly make him glow with respect for the Avengers or scream, humble man of the people, the way he positioned himself in the interview at the beginning of the episode. If anything, we're seeing the mask slip to reveal a level of arrogance and, dare I say, smugness that not only makes us want to punch him in the face even more, but combined with Walker's earlier assertion that he's kind of the government, might even foreshadow a kind of jingoistic psychotic delusion. And the fact that his partner, Lamar Hoskins, calls himself by the superhero moniker Battlestar, despite the fact that the Flag Smasher super soldiers beat them pretty handily, like right before then. And these two feel a bit over entitled, in addition to their inflated opinions of themselves. So what do you think, Bob? Am I being too harsh on these guys?
Well,
I don't.
To be fair, Bucky and Sam get whooped too, and Bucky is full on super soldier with super robo arm. So, I mean, the Flag Smashers are nothing to sneeze at. Getting whooped by them isn't exactly going to put you in the wuss category.
Yeah,
but yeah, for not having any successful missions yet. They're both kind of pretty smug about their position.
They are pretty smug, aren't
they?
Yeah,
there's some smug there. Definitely some smarm.
I mean, I don't want to minimize the fact that these guys are like hardcore soldiers. They've apparently served their country with valor, but it feels like more than just a conflict of personalities. Do you think that's fair to say, or do you think there's something else to it?
I would say that would be fair. He has his public face when the cameras are on of, hey, God bless America. Let's all get along. And then when the cameras are off, basically, like you said, tells Bucky and Sam off, hey, if you're not with me, you're against me, stay out of my way. That's a pretty big shift with people you were just seconds ago trying to join your team.
Yeah. It just makes me feel that there's more under the surface, that we're not, that we haven't been privy to yet. We're given the narrative of his life and how he's like this big hero and all of this. But like, I kind of get the impression that he was being less than sincere, less than totally 100% genuine in his interview. No, maybe he does like to think of himself in a certain way, but, his actions later in the episode, like I was saying, almost make him seem, I don't know if two-faced is really the right word, but he's sort of portraying himself in a way differently than like what he's acting like later.
Well, I've been sitting here for the last 10 minutes trying to think of a different word, and there's not one. He's just being two-faced. Let's just pin that there.
I wonder if there is some type of like, if he has like some type of hero complex, or if he, if there is some like level of psychosis lurking under the surface. And frankly, if he does later, like if that you kind of hinted at, like what if he ends up getting a hold of this like super soldier serum that the Flag Smashers have?
Well,
like,
yeah.
If he does become powered, is he going to come unhinged to some degree after that? Is he going to, is he kind of snap? Is the power going to corrupt him?
Yes.
Because I think the thing that we really have to watch for in this show is, remember Captain America and the First Avenger, when Dr. Erskine finds Steve, and he has that whole conversation with him over drinks that Steve's not allowed to have, where he's like, he basically said, I'm going to paraphrase, but he basically says, I chose you because you're a good person. A bully is a bully, but the weak person understands the value of strength. And, he reminded Steve of this conversation and the whole reason that, he felt that he was worthy to get this serum. Right. It's his last thing he does before he dies, where he gives him that little tap on the chest, to remind him of that conversation. And so, and what does he also say? He says, the serum amplifies what is within. Bad becomes worse, good becomes great. I think that's what he said. And I think we're going to see that play out with this John Walker guy, and that's not to say that after this happens and he does something reprehensible, perhaps, if this is, what's going to happen, that's not to say that after that, he's going to be fired from his position as Captain America. Like, I'm inclined to believe that if that's what happens, it's going to be like full PR damage control mode,
Well, once we get into the, tinfoil hat theory section,
okay.
I'll have more to talk about that. But
yeah. But I just think, without getting into like all of our predictions and stuff, like, I just think that something to really watch for is if this guy does get powered, how he handles it and how that's going to be a contrast to Steve. Because in my mind, they're drawing a really distinct contrast between who this guy is and who Steve is or was, right? So I think that's going to be really interesting. The other thing about, Walker is that he just kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Well, we love Sam and we love Steve and what Steve stood for.
Yeah.
And like at the beginning of the episode, they like to give the impression that maybe this guy's not so bad, but by the end of the episode, oh no, he is that bad.
He's very much, whereas Steve was sort of moral, and he recognized the authority of, the United States government and all this stuff. But at the same time, he wasn't about to follow an order that was wrong in his mind. Whereas I feel like Walker is much more tied to this notion of the government as like the ultimate authority. He has that really quick exchange with Sam in the back of the Jeep or whatever when they're riding in it, where Sam's like, wait, you hacked into my tech? He's like, well, is it really yours? It's the government, and I'm kind of the government. Like, he sees himself as like this, he apparently sees himself as this, representative of the government that should not be questioned in his authority. He also seems like sort of self-satisfied that he overruled the therapy requirement for Bucky so that he could like come on this mission for them, right? He said he was the one that did that. I just can't get over the imagery, which I'm sure was deliberate, to where when they come out of the jail, he gets their attention by like using the police car siren, right? So he's basically just using a symbol of state authority. He's being tied to these like symbols of state authority, whereas Steve's character was more tied to like concepts of like loyalty and responsibility and duty and things like that, as opposed to these sort of very specific like symbols of the state. Now they're both draped in the stars and the stripes, so don't get me wrong, they're both very overtly American symbols, but I'm just saying I think they're using the symbology of like state power and associating it very closely with this guy to sort of represent, his sort of personality and just his character, to kind of distinguish it from Steve's a little bit. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. I see like John Walker as almost believing he's his own branch of the government. I mean, there's just a huge level of ego there, where Steve, he just didn't wield that shield. He was a shield. Yeah. He protected those that needed protected.
Yeah.
regardless of what it was going to cost himself.
Yeah.
And I don't think at the end of the day, if it came down to it, John Walker's going to put himself in that position.
That's the thing. He's not Steve. And like we talked about in our last episode about the first episode of the show, like that character was originally created as the opposite of Steve Rogers in many ways, right? And so I find that really interesting, the way they're developing that. And I think that it, you know, the other thing is like he is a little bit duplicitous because of the way that he portrayed himself to that reporter versus the way that he's actually acting when the rubber meets the road, basically.
Yeah.
Now look, he came and he helped Sam and Bucky fighting, the Flag Smashers. But did he really make that much of a difference? And he was they were like still really full of themselves afterwards. You know what I mean?
Right. Which is part of my prediction.
Oh, okay.
So we'll keep a pin in that.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll put a pin in that. So, so did you have any other comments about Walker? Before we move on here.
No, not directly from what happens in the episode.
I think there's still a lot that we have to see.
Oh yeah, there's lots left to unpack there.
There's a lot left to unpack, and I'm convinced that there's more to his backstory, and I really do want to keep an eye on, the way that he handles his power, in contrast to the way Steve handled his power, right? It's like I really like your comment of like how, he carries around the shield like it's this thing, that's, I don't know if owed to him is the right thing, but like he deserves it.
Like it's a token of status.
Like it's a token of status, thank you. As opposed to Steve, who was the shield. The shield was like an extension of Steve, and that's how we used it. So again, I'm not saying that Walker is a villain, but I think he's a jerk. And I think that he has the potential to become villainous to some degree, or, to at least do some unethical things that I think Steve would have a problem with. You think I'm off base?
Are we getting into predictions? Is that what we're doing here? Or
well, do you want to just keep the predictions for the end and just do all the predictions together, or we could talk about Johnny Walker predictions right now if you want to.
Let's keep them all to the end. Let's put it. I think everything else about John Walker from this point is going to be predictions.
Yeah. Okay.
So
all right.